let's make ourselves a delicious roasted marmalade ham. This recipe comes from Jamie's Dinners, a book from 2004. We'll talk about that in just a sec, but let's get on with the recipe and we can talk about that in a minute. Very simple. We've just got a gammon and some vegetables, some celery, some carrot, some bay, some peppercorns, some oranges. Stick all that in a pot and simmer it for about an hour and a half. All we're making there is a tasty stock that's going to infuse into the ham. I'm going to bring it to the boil, turn the heat down to a gentle simmer and leave it for about an hour and a quarter, hour and a half. This is one where a wiggle room of half an hour either way, sort of more generously, doesn't really matter. That was a 750 gram piece of gammon. Some people talk about skimming the broth. If you're going to keep that liquid, and you absolutely can, it would make a great pea and ham soup or other stock for something else you're making, then yeah, I would skim it to get rid of that stuff. But you don't need to. It's just impurities from the meat coming to the surface. So it's up to you. We'll do the simmering. Once that's cooked, let it cool for a little bit and then finish it in the oven with a marmalade based glaze, which we'll come to. Really, really simple, a very simple recipe. And why did I want to do this one? This comes from Jamie's Dinners, a book from 2004. Those of you following along will notice I've skipped a couple of books here. I'm actually going to talk about these two books today. Happy Days with the Naked Chef and Jamie's Dinners. Why am I bringing them together? Well, they don't really have a core, strong concept, but you can feel Jamie starting to find himself. Couple of things going on in the world at this time. This one says accompanying a BBC TV series. This one says accompanying the Channel 4 series. And this time Jamie has moved from BBC to Channel 4 because of commercial interests. At this time he started his deal with Sainsbury's, and the BBC are a bit twitchy, or they certainly were at the time, about their regular people having other outside commercial interests and having a conflict. So Jamie up sticks and moved to Channel 4. I've also skipped over a book here, Jamie's Kitchen. That deserves its thing all by itself, so I'm going to come back to that in another video. But I wanted to pick these up together. Happy Days with the Naked Chef. So first of all, if you haven't watched my other videos in this series, go watch those and you'll get a bit of background, a bit of context for this. But in Happy Days with the Naked Chef, I commented how in Return of the Naked Chef, some of the ingredients were getting a bit out there and a bit complex. Well, they start to tame down a little bit here, and we get in this book the first glimmer of things that Jamie's interested in. There's a lot of talk in here about getting kids interested in cooking. Getting your kids involved with food is definitely the way forward for cooking in this country. So this is from 2001, and the recipes really feel like 2001's. Very bright, very colourful, but very simple. Nothing wrong with that at all. But they feel very much of the time and of the food programmes of the time. There's all good stuff in here, but he's probably maybe at the height of his UK fame here. You know, well, he sort of plateaued at that point, but he was as famous as he was going to get, put it that way. And again, like his previous two books, lots of interesting recipes, but not necessarily something you would want to own because there's amazing things in it. Here's a quick recipe I cooked from it, just to give you an idea. It's supposed to be roasted monkfish, but I can't get monkfish anywhere. So here's roasted cod, threaded with bread and wrapped in prosciutto and grilled. Apart from the addition of a few herbs and seasonings, that's pretty much it. Very, very tasty. And again, it's got that Italian English influence that's all over Jamie's work. And when we come to Jamie's Dinners in 2004, he has another slight change of heart. He has a couple of kids by this point, and there's definitely a focus on everyday cooking for families in here. It's not razor sharp, it's not super tight as a concept, but it's definitely coming through there. He's talking about getting good food into children. He's talking about favourites of everyone's. Why should you have standards when buying? Everything you eat contributes to you being happy or fit or lethargic. And he talks a lot about different people in his life and how they've influenced these recipes. There's lots of simple stuff. There's a really nice thing about a family tree, about how things can be used once and used in different ways. And the elephant in the room is that there's photos in this book of him helping out dinner ladies. Now, I feel I should put the whole concept of Jamie going to school kitchens and tackle that separately because it's way outside the concept of this book. This book came out in the same time as that school dinners episode in his life. But that's a whole nother story which we can't fit in here. Today, I just want to pick out a nice simple recipe from here and just show how we can use these simple recipes with lots of punchy flavours let's see how our gammon's doing. So our gammon has now had an hour and a quarter simmering in that flavoursome broth. It's now completely cooked. If you check the internal temperature, it's well over 80 degrees, so perfectly safe to eat now. However, it's best, and this is Jamie recommends it as well, just leave it to relax in that broth for a little bit longer, about 30 minutes. And then we'll take it out and finish it in the oven with its marmalade glaze. So after some resting time now, I'm going to pop that gammon in a tray. Just on the fat, I'm going to score it, which is going to create nice crispy bits. It's going to allow the flavour in as well. What's important here is a really good grind. Of black pepper. Our gammon now has had 20 minutes in the oven, so you can see it's starting to dry out and get a bit gnarly. So this is the perfect time to add some flavours back in. In this case, our marmalade. Any old marmalade. Just run down to Aldi and picked up this one. Now, and for this small 750 gram gammon, I'm just going to use about half a jar of marmalade. I'm just going to leave this like this, and then in about 10 minutes come back to it. The marmalade will have all melted and I can baste it back over the meat, and that's where the magic will happen. I'm going to chuck in some rosemary from the garden, which is going to get picked up by the marmalade and end up all over our gammon. That's going back in the oven now to continue glazing. And so our gammon is done, bubbling away furiously there. That's what you want. All that oozy marmalade. Just a final splash over there. And it's really, in that last 30 minutes is where all the love and attention should go. Keep basting it, keep going over it. And you're basically going to be forming a hard, crispy shell of your flavouring. You can do it with all sorts of things. This is Jamie's recipe for marmalade. So let's get that out and have a slice. Lovely glistening ham. Yeah, perfect. That's the sweet, the salty, the savoury. It's all coming together. Just how I like gammon. Really tasty and really easy. You know, very hands-off. Bit of boiling, stick it in the oven, and then a bit of basting towards the end. Really simple. Do give it a try. So there we have it, a cracking recipe for gammon, made salty and sticky with all that marmalade dressing. A real winner of a family recipe for a book that is all about family dinners. I'm reviewing all of Jamie Oliver's books, so make sure you press subscribe to make sure you're notified about each one.